and welcome to this week's episode of Money with Alpha. This one is a mixture of tactical and strategy, and it's specifically around money strategy. And it's something that I've hesitated using the word strategy when it comes to money because I always felt like it was a bit too intimidating. But ultimately, we do have to be somewhat strategic when it comes to how we manage our money. A lot of the time we're so random because we respond to opportunities, or we make decisions that are disconnected perhaps from other decisions that we've made, and that's fine. And it's the way I certainly operated for many years, and it's the way I witnessed my parents operating. And to a certain extent I think they had a bit of an idea of what they wanted, and at that time in Australia it was all about property. Invested in property, buy property, and the market has changed a lot. So with change, you need to also adapt your strategy too, or at least review it, potentially revise it. And now the world that we're living in, you cannot really just do one thing when it comes to money. You've got to kind of have multiple fingers in pies. And that's not to say you've got to be an expert in lots of different types of investing and all sorts of things. It doesn't have to be complex. And that's one of the messages I'm so passionate about, is to try to keep things simple and manageable and able to be done and managed and easily on a quarterly basis is how I tend to manage my finances. I do annual reviews, but then I do like quarterly performance reviews. And I know that it can sound a bit intimidating, but once you've set it up, you're really just monitoring. So what I wanted to go through today is sort of like the 5 key elements of what a money strategy actually contains. And some of this, it requires some introspection, and it always starts with clarity. So that's one of the things that I'll go through, how to actually gain that. And doing it with your partner or doing it with somebody else is easier because we're in our own heads and we tend to repeat the things that we're familiar with because they're familiar, and we know what we're going to get with those, but it might not necessarily always be what's serving us. So the 5 elements are: what do you want? Why do you want it? How will you get it? And the action steps that you need to take incrementally. You don't have to have the whole thing mapped out. And then number 4 is a money audit. And it's just, anyway, I will explain what that means. And then number 5 is visualization. So there's a real combination there of the introspection and then the practicality as well, because you really do need to bring the two together. Because without that, it makes it really difficult to actually then implement plans to help you achieve your strategy. And I'm trying to also emphasize that it doesn't have to be scary as well. Once you start to look at this, it will become easier. So you start to tune your brain to this way of thinking, and then once you're in it, you're like, why have I never thought like this before? Or why did I think it was so complex? Because a lot of it is perception, and perception is reality. So you perceive something to be difficult, it will be. So one of the things I'd like you to do before I go into the detail of each of those 5 elements is to try and clean slate your mind. Take a deep breath and just get rid of any thoughts about what you thought money was or what managing money was. We're going to deal with the way we want things to be. And this isn't about creating positivity for the sake of it. We're genuinely going to just try and just start from afresh and go through each of these steps. And while that can be challenging, let's do it anyway. So number 1 was, what do you want? Now, by this, I mean, what do you want from your business, from your career, from your life? What sort of a lifestyle do you want? And if you've listened to any of my previous episodes and read anything that I've written, I harp on about this a lot. And something that I've been really leaning into the concept of manifestation recently. And my goodness, I had disconnected from the concept of clarity to a certain extent myself. I gotten clear on like the business sort of strategy and those sorts of things, but when it came to my own desire to create and manifest, I wasn't as clear as I could have been. And as I've started to become clear again, oh my goodness, I'd forgotten the power of it, to be honest, even to the extent of, I was at an event yesterday, and there's a lady who, I really love her work. She does laser cutting on these beautiful, and she had a sunflower, and I love sunflowers. And it was kind of like the lucky door prize for the event. And I looked at that and was like, I really want to manifest that because I love sunflowers. I love her work. I love to be able to promote her work, and I want it. And when I got home and I displayed it, and then when my daughter came home from school and I showed her, and she's like, Mama, you're always winning things. And then I realized she is actually right. I've won holidays, I win lucky draw prize, I win raffles, like I win so many things, but I hadn't really won anything for probably a couple of years. I'd gotten out of the mindset and the rhythm of it. And the events of the last few years sort of preoccupied my mind to the point where I had disconnected from that. And then when I reflected back on all the things that I have manifested in my life, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really good at this and I need to tap back into it. So I encourage you to do the same thing and look at the things that you've created in your life and what you've manifested and get really clear, because without that clarity, you can't really ask. It's the same as, walking into the kitchen and trying to figure out what to eat. And you've got a pantry full of food, a freezer and a fridge full of food, and you have no idea. The food's not going to magically appear in your hands. It will only appear when you get clear on exactly what it is that you want to make or to take, depending if it's already made in the fridge, and then it will be there. It's a little, I know that's quite a simplistic example, but you get my meaning. So you need to get really, really clear on what it is that you want, because without that, it makes it really hard to do anything else. And it won't just magically appear either. And then you have to also understand why you want it. So unless you are energetically aligned and really have your whole energetics around what it is that you want, the universe will not believe you that you want it because you're not really connected. It's like, oh, I guess I should want to be like that, but do I really? There's that uncertainty and that energy that's just broken, and broken energy or uncertain energy is never going to get you where you want to go. So be clear on what you want and why you want it. So that why is really, really important too, because we often connect to, if we're not entirely sure ourselves, we'll revert back to what our parents have told us, what our friends are doing, what our partner has said. You don't have to be or do anything like anybody else says. You can be completely unique. Tap into your intuition, tap into who you truly are and identity. I've met people who do a lot of this sort of identity work, and it is powerful. It's really, really important because, especially as women, we can lose a bit of that each time. Like, we grow up and we become, we become a teenager and all of the things that apparently go with that. And I remember my mum saying to me, well, you were never a typical teenager. And I was like, okay, so maybe it didn't have to be. Anyway, I was just me. And then in your 20s, you become whatever it is that you study. Like, I studied accounting, and so I became an accountant. And then I would meet people and like, but you're not a typical accountant. And I was like, but because I'm accounting, it's just what I do. It's not who I am. And I'd never taken that on. And I always found it confusing that people made you what you did. So I always found that really strange. But as I'm older looking back and I can see it, I was like, oh yeah. And to a certain extent, it's difficult not to be that way in some areas. And what really compounded it was becoming a mum, because that's an all-consuming job. It's 24/7, it's intense, there's hormones, there's so much that you just are not prepared for. And you've got this responsibility of this little creature to keep it alive, to keep it healthy, to keep yourself healthy so that you're at your best for them. And with that, I think a sense of identity starts to slip away and we become the mum. And even when I'm dropping my daughter off at school, like, oh, Anouk's mum, and it's not Alpha, I'm the mum. And so that, after a while, when it gets sort of pounded in, you kind of lose a little bit of it. So we have to start to regain that as well and connect back to the dreams and things that we had when we were younger. They might not be what we have now, or we need to establish what they are. So that's really important. I need to move forward, otherwise I won't get through the other three. So how you'll do it, I wouldn't worry too much about that right now, except to once you've got your what and your why, the how starts to fall into place, or at least you need to trust that it will, and at least the one step that needs to come next. Because quite often we don't have all the information we need in order to have the how. And I spent years asking how. And then now that I'm older and I realize it was the wrong question. So while I have it there, it's the steps that you need to take, even if just that one next step, because that next step will give you more information that you didn't have before so that you can make the decision on the next step. And sometimes the step might not necessarily be the right one, but then once you've done it. So it's really incremental and iterative as well. So you can take one step forward, two steps back. You can take five steps forward. You can take two steps back. But it's a constant movement. It's that evolve or dissolve kind of concept. And without action or movement, we won't evolve. So that part is really, really important to create the energy, the movement of that energy, which is why it's also really important to move, to exercise, to go outside. It was really, really interesting as I was thinking about what I would be talking about today. And I had my five elements, but how I was then going to blend them together. And I thought, I'm just going to go outside. I'm going to hang up the washing. And then I had this really brilliant idea about something else. And I thought, gosh, and I was already outside this morning. I went for a bike ride. But fresh air and sunshine, but genuinely fresh air really is important. So it helps to move that energy. So that's really important too. So then number 4, I have called this money audit, which might sound a little intimidating. However, all it really is just becoming aware of where your money is going. So I'm not saying do anything about it just yet, but at least just sort of look at it. So look at your bank statements, look at your credit cards. I know there's either minimum payment or like it's automatically deducted, or the full balance gets automatically deducted each month. I know a lot of people don't actually look at their credit card statements. I'm one of those really like boring people. I actually go through and I have my receipts and I check them off one by one, not because I'm looking for something that shouldn't be there, but because I want to be very aware of what is in there. And then I go back to my cash flow management. You can call it a budget, but I prefer cash flow management spreadsheet, and kind of look at, is it what I expected it to be? And I just want to be, and it literally, that takes me like half an hour every month. So it's not a big time commitment, but I just want to be aware of where the money's going, because over Christmas, I overdid it from what I should have done and what I have done. And I'm not beating myself up about that, because, it happened and it was fun. And I, bought things for my daughter. I bought things for family members, you know, food preparation for Christmas Eve is a big celebration for us. So but now I was like, okay, I need to turn it back down again. And of course, I love Costco, but every time I go there, I spend a lot of money. The food lasts a long time, but the actual outlay can be, a bit of a shock. So just do a money audit, just to know where your money's going. What's coming in, what's going out? Is it what you expect? Are you happy with it? If not, then that will also give you a bit more information about what actions to take next. And then finally, visualization. And this one has to come last, because you've got all of these other things, understanding what you want, why you want it, any kinds of actions that you can take, and where your money's going. And just this visualization process is tremendous. And the more sensual you can make it, where you can actually visualize. It was even, you got to the point where the other day, I mean, I love my house, but a couple of years ago, we went on a sailing trip and I saw this house on the side of the water, and it's just been in my mind. I was like, I just have to like continue to visualize it. I actually went on realestate.com, had a look, see if it wasn't for sale, but I could see the house and was like, oh, I don't know why this thing it's in my mind. And I also have another house, which I see more as like a retirement house, that's kind of in my mind as well. And rather than just pushing it to the side, I'm leaning into it now, and the visualization of all the other things that go with it. And I love cooking, but sometimes I would love somebody to just cook for me. So I would love to have a chef. And who do you think I met at a networking function yesterday? A chef. So it's really interesting how this sort of thing comes together when you start to visualize and get clear on what you want and why. So all of this comes together as part of a money strategy. So these are all not things necessarily, it's not a full action plan. It's not a task list. This is just conceptual at the moment to help you get clear on the way you want your business and life to be. And without it, it makes it really difficult to actually be intentional about anything else and make decisions about anything else. So I'll run through those 5 again, and I highly recommend that you either write them down or start to think about them, journal it. Physically, pen and paper, like actually physically pen and paper. Just typing it's not really the same thing. There are studies that actually show that the use of our opposable thumb connected with our pen on paper has a different neural connection, and it's stickier than it is to just type. So because we don't really use our thumbs when we type, if you notice, it's mainly the fingers. Anyway, so element 1 is, what do you want? Write it down. Element 2, why do you want it? Write that down too. Element 3, How will you do it? The one thing that you need to do. And if you need more information, you've got to write down what you need in order to gain that additional information. Do you need to ask a question? Do you need to do some research? Just something to help get you moving and create the movement. And then number 4 is know where your money's going. So your money audit. And then number 5, visualization. Feel that thing, see it, imagine in intimate detail. Just go, even if you need the light fittings of the house or the faces of team, or how, if you're sitting in a room and you're working with clients in a group environment or one-on-one, or you're online, or you're sitting somewhere in the world and you're dealing with your clients and you're taking sessions over there. Actually physically feel it. If you're somewhere where it's warm, go sit in the sunshine, put your laptop on your lap, close your eyes, and actually just visualize yourself being there. The more real you can make it for your body and the more present, the more the universe will feel like it's actually there and real. And then reality, like actual reality, will just need to catch up. And I realize that sounds like a leap. And I have struggled with this myself. And this is the journey. So I'm taking you on a journey that I'm also going on. So I have done this in the past, but I'm revisiting it really this year. And this is part of my path this year, is to create momentum, which is my word for 2024, which is really interesting because this is really about creating that momentum and that movement in the direction that I really want to go. And I love to help you do that too. So if you need any help with this, I do actually have a special for the month of March, which is the March Money Makeover Month, as I'm calling it. And it's a one-off session to help you actually get clear on all these things, because sometimes it is difficult to do it on our own. So it's a one-off $220, including GST. And you actually have some action steps out of it as well, so that you know exactly what you need to do. You'll have access to a few other bonuses as well, including my lifestyle meditation, money and lifestyle meditation, and the 30-day Elevate Your Money Vibration program as well, to actually keep you going. So that will help you beyond that single session. So have a look. I'll put the link in the show notes as well if you're interested in that. But at the very least, do these 5 elements and write them down. Okay, with that, have a wonderful day.